Imagine your son, the heir to the throne, has left the village and has gone to the city of Johannesburg. Imagine your son has now committed a murder. The book that I have chosen is Cry the Beloved Country by Alan Paton. This book has a genre of political fiction, with the author being Alan Paton. Alan Paton was a South African-born anti-apartheid activist. Some of his works include Cry the Beloved Country and To Let the Fallow Roll. He was born on the 11th of January 1903 in Pietermaritzburg. Sadly, he died on the 12th of April 1988 in a place called Botha's Hill. He won the Anisfield Wolf Book Award for fiction. Some of his movies include Cry the Beloved Country, A Drink in the Passage, and Lost in the Stars. The story is about Stephen Khumalo, who goes to Johannesburg to look for his son Absalom, who has been accused of murder. The book made me feel sad due to the moral decay of Stephen's family. At the end, I felt happy because there is hope that South Africa's racial discrimination will come to an end. The thing that stood out from the book was Stephen Khumalo's love for his son and the ability of James Jarvis to forgive. I chose this book because I am interested in political fiction, and the book met my expectations. The writing style. The style of writing can be interpreted as poetic or lyrical. He used alliteration and repetition in the novel about a father and his son facing difficult times in South Africa. The author appeals to the reader's sense of sight and gives us an understanding of what it was like during the political era. Alan Paton uses foreshadowing. This provides hints about future events. We can see this when Stephen Khumalo learns that James Jarvis' son has been killed. The setting. The story takes place in the country of South Africa, in the city of Johannesburg, in the village of Indocheni, on a farm of High Place. The plot. A humble priest, Stephen Khumalo, receives a letter asking him to come to Johannesburg to see his sick sister. Gertrude, who had gone there to work, turns to prostitution. Khumalo searches for them with the help of a priest, Mzimangu. We learn with great sadness that his sister has turned to prostitution and that his son, Absalom, has killed or murdered Arthur Jarvis, a white crusader for racial justice. Absalom confesses to his crime, and Stephen Khumalo gets a lawyer to fight Absalom's case. His life becomes tragically entwined with neighbouring white farmer James Jarvis, the father of Arthur Jarvis. James hears of his son's death and leaves for Johannesburg, and learns of his son's articles on racial prejudice, and looks at his own life and looks at his own racial prejudice. Absalom is given the death sentence, and Jarvis and Khumalo try to rebuild their lives. Most memorable moments. My most memorable moment was based on coincidence. Khumalo is cheated by a young man who disappears with his money. Khumalo sees an older man who tells him that he has been robbed. This older man knows the Reverend Theophilus Nzimangu, the priest who sent for Khumalo. The older man helps Khumalo find Mzimangu, and together they look for his family. The themes. Suffering. The Reverend Stephen Khumalo is heartbroken at the destruction of his family, while James Jarvis suffers the loss of his only child. This suffering creates a bond between them and lets them think of how to rebuild and restore the future to prevent suffering for future generations. Tragedy. Khumalo tries to bring his people back together and strengthen moral values, but Gertrude disappears. Absalom is executed for the murder of Arthur Jarvis. Hope, as Absalom's son, is to be raised in Khumalo's village and someday their race relationships will improve. The main characters: Stephen Khumalo, an elderly Zulu priest trying to find his family in Johannesburg. Later, he tries to build and restore his village. He is the father of Absalom. Theophilus Mzimangu is a priest from Johannesburg who assists Khumalo in finding his son Absalom and his sister Gertrude. John Khumalo is Stephen's brother and a corrupt leader. Absalom Khumalo, Stephen's son who has left the village to look for his aunt Gertrude. Absalom murders Arthur Jarvis. Gertrude Khumalo, the young sister of Stephen Khumalo, becomes a prostitute and leads an immoral life. James Jarvis, a rich landowner whose son Arthur is killed, but later he forgives the Khumalos. My favorite character is Stephen Khumalo. He is an elderly Zulu priest born and raised in the village of Ndotjeni. He is a good man with a good and strong moral sense and faithful servant to God. He accepts his suffering with dignity and grace. He helps other people and is the moral center of the novel. Characters change and develop. Stephen Khumalo rebuilds his village and accepts help of James Jarvis and develops his farming. James Jarvis realizes racial prejudice and re-looks at himself after learning about son Arthur's job crusade against racial prejudice. They both forgive each other. Constructive criticism addressing problematic parts. The important social record of life in South Africa at the dawn of apartheid. The author should have paid more attention to the youth perspective of Absalom Khumalo. Recommendation and rating. I recommend this book to those interested in political fiction and family drama surrounding race relations in the apartheid era. This is a beautiful story that embraces, forgives, and remorses. I rate this book 10 out of 10. Thank you.